Oh, baby, what's going on? I am fired up for Sunday's game. Already rolling the sleeves up and ready to go. And we're going to dive into every element of this Dolphins Cowboys matchup on Christmas Eve. But before we get going, you got to let me know how you feeling. This has huge game written all over it. 10-4 versus 10-4. AFC versus NFC. Dolphins versus Cowboys. Let me know in the comments. What's your confidence level in a Dolphins win? Scale it for me 1 through 10. Now, look at this matchup, and there is a ton to unpack. So, buckle up, dial it in, and here we go. Like I mentioned, 10-4 versus 10-4, but oh baby, the scoring offenses, the premier best of the best. It's like a Ferrari versus a Lamborghini on offense. The Dolphins with the best scoring offense against the Cowboys with the second best scoring offense. Defensively, that Cowboys defense has been good, but after the shutout, this Dolphins defense climbing and climbing in terms of NFL rankings all the way up to 15th this week, and that's why you see the over-under at 51. You know, if it was the one offense versus two offense, you might think that over-under is a little bit higher, but with both these teams playing good defense, it's right at 51. The Dolphins a slight 1.5 favorite. All of that has the makings for a compelling matchup and a huge game with playoff implications and seeding implications at this point in the season. So this isn't for the weak at heart. Bring your track shoes, folks. I think we might see a track meet on Sunday at Hard Rock Stadium because we got two of the best lining up under center, especially this year. Statistically speaking, two legitimate MVP candidates. We'll start with Tua Tagovailoa, our guy, number one on the field, number one in our hearts. Look at the yards per game, 280, 25 touchdowns with 10 interceptions. Dak's been a little bit better in that category with 28 touchdowns compared to just the 7 interceptions, but not quite compiling as many yards per game and not quite as good of a completion percentage. That said, make no mistake about it, these are two premier quarterbacks in the upper echelon of all quarterbacks in the National Football League. So it's a huge game, and I give you the choice. Leading your team into battle, who do you want? Let me know in the comments. If it's Tua Tagovailoa, hint, that's the right answer. Type TT in the comments. If it's Dak Prescott, I respect your opinion, but you're wrong. Type DP in the comments. TT for Tua, DP for Dak Prescott. Coming up, we're going to continue to dive into every single note, nugget, and everything in between as it relates to this matchup. Also, some roster news at the end of today's video. But first, I got to give a huge shout out to PrizePicks because we couldn't do this show without them. Proud presenting sponsor. And folks, I've told you about PrizePicks. You know it's the most exciting and easiest way to play daily fantasy sports. You know how it works. You pick more or less on a player's projected stat line, but it's the holiday season, so we got 12 days of Pickmas. That's right, it's a new promo each day leading up to Christmas because Pickmas with PrizePicks, you're giving out 12 days of brand new promos, so sign in each day to see what's in store. It's the best time of the year, so you know PrizePicks is all about it with the 12 days of Pickmas. They've also got the Demons and Goblins, which is new from PrizePicks. You can make it easier or harder to win. With the Demons, you win up to 100 times, but statistically, they're a little bit more wild and harder to win, and that's where the fun happens at prizepicks.com/CLNS. One more time, that's prizepicks.com/CLNS. That's where you got to go for the up to $100 deposit match. prizepicks.com/CLNS. And you're probably saying, Jake, make it easier on me. Well, we love you and we care about you, so we'll do exactly that. The link is in the comments of today's video. It's prizepicks.com/CLNS. All right. The Dolphins, the Cowboys, AFC, NFC. Let's get to know those Dallas Cowboys. This, my friends, is a deep dive into everything around America's team, if you will. And yes, I use that a little bit loosely. We all know the Miami Dolphins are America's team. But here we go. Coming off a blowout loss to the Bills, 31-10, I wouldn't say embarrassed, but by their standards and with their season expectations, certainly a disappointing loss in a big game. So you know they're going to be hungry and ready to go, which, by the way, I think is a cliche. Everybody's hungry and ready to go to the National Football League. It's December. We're playing for keeps. So relax a little bit, Riepma. They're tied with the Eagles, 10-4 in the NFC East, really gunning for potentially a number 2 seed, but for sure that NFC East title, so they would host the game and not be a wild card team. And the home and road splits is what jumps out to me with the Dallas Cowboys. 7-0 at home, but 3-4 away from Jerry's World, and it doesn't end there as far as the statistical discrepancies between home and away. I mean, each one of those categories are pretty jaw-dropping. 40 points a game at home compared to 21.7 on the road. And you guys know math is not my specialty, but nearly double the amount of points at home than on the road. And the opponent's point per game, not great either. They're holding opponents to 15 points at home compared to 22.3 on the road. They're even better at third down at home than they are on the road. So for Dolphins fans, I think this is a big deal that they're playing at Hard Rock Stadium, where the Dolphins have been terrific this season, just the one loss. And on the flip side, the Cowboys have not been good on the road. But part of the reason that Dolphins team has had success and continues to find success is the play of this defense. Check it out from Pro Football Focus, how good the Dolphins defense has been as of late. They've allowed just points on just 11 of 58 drives since week 10. That's just 19%. And you guessed it, that's the best in the National Football League since week 10. So obviously slowing down this highly potent Dallas Cowboys offense is a tall task. But if Miami continues to sound play at all three levels like they've shown of late, I think they're up to the task. And let's just take a page out of the playbook last week against the Jets. Obviously, really, it's a totally different offense. I know, but still worth pointing out that Miami's coming off their best game defensively. The shutout goes without saying, but how about the 4 turnovers forced, 2 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries? The Jets had 4 yards of total offense in the first half. That is not a misprint. That's incredible. And then the 6 sacks, 14 quarterback hits. Both Jets quarterbacks were under duress all game long, and that will be crucial to the success of the Dolphins in this game against the Dallas Cowboys. So with that, what are we watching for on Sunday? Let me tell you, there's a lot as it relates to matchups, and one you circle in red Sharpie at the top of your game plan, of your scouting report, whatever it is, the matchup between CeeDee Lamb and Jaylen Ramsey. You got to give credit where credit's due. CeeDee Lamb has been tremendous this season. Look at the numbers. They jump off the page at you. The 8 touchdowns, over 1,300 yards receiving, and over 100 catches. So what better way to slow down one of the NFL's best wide receiver than with the NFL's best cornerback? And no, I did not stutter. I firmly believe Jaylen Ramsey is the best cornerback in the National Football League, because these next-gen stats they do jump out the page at you. 0 or 1 catch in 4 of 7 games played this season. The opponent passer rating at 22.4 in balls that have been targeted to the guy Jaylen Ramsey is covering. And this one, it might just sum it up. 1.6 catches and 22 yards per game on the receivers that he's covering. Insane numbers from Jaylen Ramsey. And I was telling Coop, our producer, today before we got on the air, sometimes you forget how good Jaylen Ramsey is because he just locks down the opposing wide receiver like he did to Garrett Wilson against the New York Jets. Ramsey is that good, and what an opportunity for him to put the clamps down on CeeDee Lamb. That's one thing I'll have my eye on. Also, we're hoping, and no official word yet, so we'll keep you posted on this, but obviously Tyreek Hill missed Sunday's game against the Jets. No problem, but this ain't the Jets. This is the Dallas Cowboys, and the services and production of Tyreek Hill are certainly needed for the Dolphins to be at their very best. And that's probably the most obvious thing I'll say all day, but it's still worth pointing out. And the way Tyreek Hill was moving in warm-ups against the Jets, or the game before the Jets, you'd hope he'd be able to go with a week to continue to recover. But look at the numbers there. And still the 2,000-yard mark not out of the question. He is more than 3/4 of the way there with better than 1,500 yards and just the 3 games to go. It's a lofty goal, but man, has he been special, and in my opinion, making a case to be the MVP of the entire National Football League. Now, we know we're football guys here. We're football gals. We're football guys. We understand games are won and lost in the trenches, and that means I'm going to have my eyes on the defensive line of the Miami Dolphins and the offensive line for the Dallas Cowboys. This is good on good. This is everything you ask for. This is like an Oklahoma drill. Give me my best here and my best over there, and that's what we're going to have all game long. It'll be like a car accident on every play, and I'm looking forward to that because this Dolphins defensive line, in all seriousness, has really balled out as of late. Second most sacks in the entire National Football League, and this is interesting, second highest sacks per pass play percentage. So that means when an opponent goes back to pass 10% of the time, the Dolphins are coming up with a sack. Only the Chiefs have a better percentage, and it's not by much. It's just fractions, little fraction decimal points. So you get the idea. When the opposition goes back to pass, the Dolphins, defensive line, edge rushers, and even some of the secondary, the way Vic Fangio dials up blitzes, have been able to get home to the quarterback, and that will be paramount. And as I mentioned, second most sacks from the Miami Dolphins in all the NFL with 48, and having 6 against the Jets last Sunday certainly helped that. But this Cowboys offensive line has only allowed 33 sacks, and that's tied for the 10th fewest. So you think about a top 10 offensive line versus a very good Dolphins defensive line. And I've got a magic number in my head. I think if the Dolphins defensive line can get to Dak Prescott at least 4 times, that will be paramount in the success of this Dolphins defense against the Cowboys. But let me know what you think in the comments. Can the Dolphins get 4 sacks in this game? Real simple. If you think absolutely, no problem. Chalk a couple up for Bradley Chubb, for Andrew Van Ginkel, for Christian Wilkins, Zach Ziller. The list goes on. Type Y for yes. If you say not so fast, we'll have to shut them down in the secondary, which, by the way, I also believe the Dolphins are capable. Type N in the comments for no. And last but certainly not least, you're getting predictable, Riepma. You're like a broken record. I get it, but it's still paramount in every single game to win the turnover battle. Football guys and gals, listen up. You win by winning the turnover battle. And for the first time this season, the Miami Dolphins are finally plus in turnover differential. They've been minus all season. That's why my hair is turning gray. That's why I'm losing my hair. But after the 4 turnovers they forced against the Jets and did not commit a turnover, they are now +2 in turnover margin in the NFL. That's good enough for 14th. But hey, I can once again sleep at night knowing the Dolphins are plus in turnover differential. Now, for the Cowboys, one of the many reasons they've been successful, they take care of the football and they force turnovers. They're +9 for the season, and that's the 3rd best mark in the National Football League. So the Cowboys defense has been able to force the turnovers while the offense has been able to take care of the football, and that's why they're in position to perhaps win the NFC East. Now, for the AFC side of things, I said this game has playoff seeding implications on the line. Indeed, it does, because they're the Dolphins currently holding on to the number 2 seed at 10-4, ahead of the fading Jags, who at this point really are trying to hold on for dear life in the AFC South. You've got the Chiefs at 9-5. Everybody chasing the Ravens at 11-3. And we're not looking ahead. That's not what this is. But obviously that game has huge seeding implications on the line as well. And you guys know I love the New York Times simulator, right? Where you can punch in which game does what. Now, it's so crucial for the Dolphins to beat the Cowboys. Yes, that is obviously very important. But here's what happens if the Dolphins go 2-1, even with a loss to the Cowboys. They still make the playoffs, and they have a 65% chance to host a playoff game. This is if they lose to the Cowboys, but yet beat the Ravens and then beat the Bills. So obviously, this is all hypothetical. I read some of the comments the other night. What's this guy smoking? And the answer is nothing, because these are all hypothetical situations. I'll say it one more time. Hypothetical simulations based on percentages. Now, here's an interesting one. If the Dolphins beat the Cowboys, but then lose to the Ravens and lose to the Bills, they still make the playoffs, but that chance to host a wild card game goes all the way down to 23%, and it's way more likely that they'll be on the road. So, no matter what happens, whether the sky is falling, whether it's not, we got to stay together on Dolphins Today because that's what it's all about. And again, these are just hypothetical simulations. But there are scenarios this coming weekend where the Dolphins will, in fact, clinch that playoff spot. That's why you saw the 100% there, because in most cases, the Dolphins can clinch a playoff spot just this weekend. With a win, they're in. That's the simplest way. The rest you don't have to remember because they win and they're in. Now, let's say the Dolphins tie and Jacksonville loses. Hey, we're in. If the Dolphins tie, Indianapolis loses, and Houston loses, the Dolphins are in. Now, bear with me here. The Dolphins tie, Indianapolis loses, or they tie and Cleveland loses, Dolphins are still in. And how about this one? A Dolphins tie, a Houston loss, and a Cincinnati loss or tie, or a Houston loss or tie, the Dolphins are in. And my favorite, Dolphins tie, Cincinnati loses or ties, Indianapolis loses or ties. Yes, the Dolphins are in. If you remembered any of that, kudos to you. The most important thing to remember is win and you're in. Want to wrap it up with some roster news because when breaking news happens, we've got you covered. This one just hit the wire moments ago, but the Miami Dolphins have announced an official roster move, and maybe it's a surprise. Maybe it's, we saw the writing on the wall here with Jason Pierre-Paul being a healthy scratch for that game against the Jets. But the Miami Dolphins have, in fact, moved on from two-time Super Bowl champion Jason Pierre-Paul, and he has been waived to make a roster spot for Chris Brooks. We talked about Chris Brooks yesterday, how much he can add to that backfield that's already potent, gives you one more element as he's kind of a power guy and can get those tough yards. So welcome back off of IR, Chris Brooks, and farewell, Jason Pierre-Paul. Not a huge loss. He played in a handful of snaps, single digits to be exact, on the defensive side, and the production from Andrew Van Ginkel, obviously Bradley Chubb, and Emmanuel Ogbah, the Dolphins are doing just fine on the defensive front. So with that said, the moment we've all been waiting for, we wrap it up with a little score prediction. Let me know in the comments what your score prediction is for this Dolphins-Cowboy 10-4, 10-4 AFC versus NFC showdown on Christmas Eve. We'll be fired up for it. All watch party, everything else intact. Can't wait to do it. And I'll give you my score prediction. Like I said, I think it's going to be a track meet. So give me the Dolphins to get the win, 38-35. A lot of points being scored. Take the over. And most importantly, take the aqua and orange. Shout out to producer Coop on the ones and twos today. Hell of a video. Thanks for bearing with us through all the elements of the Dallas Cowboys and, of course, the Dolphins roster move. And as always, we like to have a little fun on Dolphins Today. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time on Dolphins Today.